Welcome to the Logical Shaman News. I'm going to start analyzing news stories daily. Hopefully, keep it around 15 minutes and do shorter clips as well. We're going to be looking at this article today, August 1st, 2025. Corporations for Public Broadcasting, funder of NPR and PBS, says it will end operations within months after federal budget cuts. And this is by CBS News. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting said Friday it would begin winding down its operations after its funding was eliminated by the Trump administration and Congress. The CPB is a private nonprofit founded in 1967 that serves as a steward of funding for public media. It provides funds to 1,500 local public radio and television stations, as well as PBS and NPR. It employs about 100 people. I'm going to save most of my commentary till the end, and I'm going to go into depth about the history and things that are involved in this, but I just want to point out some of the propaganda terms in here. Public media, public radio. These things aren't public, they're just funded by an organization called the government, which can take your money by force. That doesn't make them public. These are just terms used to make things feel good to us. President Trump signed an executive order in May instructing the organization to cease federal funding for PBS and NPR. In June, the House approved a White House request to claw back, they're also using scary language here, claw back $1.1 billion in already appointed federal funds from the CPB. The Senate Appropriations Committee's 2026 appropriations bill eliminated funding for the for the CPB for the first time in over 50 years. I also just want to point out, it's not clawing money when they take your money by force for taxes. No, it's clawing it back when the government decides to not give you the money that they stole in the first place. Despite the extraordinary efforts of millions of Americans who called, wrote, and petitioned Congress to preserve federal funding for CPB, to preserve stealing your money to pay for it, we now face the difficult reality of closing our operations, said CPB President and CEO Patricia Harrison in a statement. CPB remains committed to fulfilling its fiduciary responsibilities and supporting our partners through this transition with transparency and care. The organization said in a statement it told employees that a majority of staff positions will conclude when the fiscal year ends. The CPB did not say exactly how many positions that was. Who knows how many are even working there. A small transition team will remain through January, blah, 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 blah. Mr. Trump also fired 3 members of the CPB's 5-person board in April. In response, the CPB sued, arguing the president was exceeding his authority, but that case was dropped on Friday. Interesting. Maybe he wasn't. Both PBS and NPR, the most high-profile public media organizations, have long been the target of Republican criticisms and have been preparing for the possibility of cuts since Mr. Trump's reelection. The broadcasters receive a roughly $500 million in public funding through the CPB. In March, PBS CEO Paula Kerger and NPR President and CEO Catherine Mayer defended their organizations from accusations of bias in testimony before a House subcommittee. Mayer warned that defunding public radio poses a real risk to the public safety in our country. If we don't get public radio, you're not safe, she said. Some NPR stations receive more than 50% of their budget from federal funding and may face layoffs. Rural areas would feel it the largest, because they won't get their emergency storm warnings, because there's no other way to do that. Public media, public radio, public television are a critical part of the emergency response plans of nearly half of these states. All right, is that really what it's about? All right, CBS. What is the CPB? Where did it come from? So just a quick glance at Wikipedia. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting was created in 1967. It was created by Lyndon B. Johnson, who signed the Public Broadcasting Act of 1967. The new organization initially collaborated with the National Education Television Network, NET, which would be replaced by PBS for modern times. So Lyndon B. Johnson, interesting, he took over after the assassination of Kennedy. So did Lyndon B. Johnson have any ties to television or radio or the news? Well, Lyndon Johnson was very close friends with someone called Frank Stanton. Frank Stanton was an American broadcasting executive who served as the president of CBS for nearly 30 years. Interesting. Oh, wait, this article is from CBS. I wonder if they have any reason to defend something called the CPB. So, Frank Stanton, how do I know he was friends with LBJ?
I was probably closer to him than any other president. I think when the history is written of this generation, he'll be a much bigger figure than he is today. I think the programs that Jack Kennedy had introduced that were not getting any place in Congress were all put through by one guy, and that was Lyndon Johnson.
Oh, and then he looks at the camera because his what he wanted wasn't getting put through by the president, and then that guy gets killed, and then his best friend becomes president, and everything he wants gets put through. Interesting.
Very powerful man. I got a call from Walter Jenkins, who was Johnson's right arm, asking me, said the boss would appreciate it if you could come down and help out after the assassination, and I did. And for 2 or 3 days, I was living practically in the White House. And I know that one night, at the end of that 3 or 4 days, I was staying at the Mayflower. He called me and he said, come out to the house and have dinner. I'd say I was pretty close to him. He certainly tried to get me to come down and work for him. I had a hand in advising him on some of his, before he was president, on some of his station acquisitions. When his first daughter got married, it was a White House wedding, and it was a Saturday afternoon, 5 o'clock, I think. And obviously Ruth and I were going down for it, and he called me in the morning and said, I want you to take care of the kids tonight. And I said, what do you mean? He said, they're going to try to get away from the press, and I want you to take care of them.
All right, that's enough. But you get the idea. They were so close that he asked him to watch his kids. He advised the president, at least before he was president, if not during, and sources say that he also worked in his cabinet and helped him in other capacities. So why is this important? Well, not only was he the president of CBS, who is now defending something that LBJ put in or instated. Well, we also know in the past, let's see, this is from Carnegie.org, Public Broadcasting Turns 50. Carnegie Corporations of New York gave seed money to the CPB, as did Ford Foundation. Interesting, Ford Foundation also funded it, in addition to its pioneering work on a proposal to improve reception for public broadcasting stations through satellite technology. Commercial broadcasters also showed support. Frank Stanton, the president of CBS, sent a telegram to Killian praising the commission's report and pledged $1 million to the CPB. Instead of treating the emerging public system as a competitor, Stanton said, with this $1 million check goes CBS's best wishes for the immediate and lasting success of the corporation in fulfilling the great promise of public broadcasting and what it holds for this nation. So he didn't see them as a competitor. They must have aligned with him on many things, or he would not support them. So who's Frank Stanton, and where did he come from? Well, Frank Stanton, I'm now going to the Schiller Institute, who does research on many different things. But this is from an article called The New Dark Age, The Frankfurt School and Political Correctness from 1992 Fidelio magazine. All right, let's look at the radio. What is the radio project? Social control, the radio project. Here then were some potent theories of social control. The great possibilities of this Frankfurt School media work were probably the major contributing factors in the support given the ISR by the bastions of the establishment after the Institute transferred its operations to America in 1934. In 1937, the Rockefeller Foundation began funding research into the social effects of new forms of mass media, particularly radio. Scroll down. They started a project called the Office of Radio Research, popularly known as the Radio Project. The director of the project was Paul Lazarsfeld, the foster son of Austrian Marxist economist Rudolf Hilferding and a longtime collaborator of the ISR from the early 1930s. Under Lazarsfeld was Frankfurt Stanton, a recent PhD in industrial psychology. That's also interesting. The head of CBS was a PhD in industrial psychology from Ohio State, who had just made research director of Columbia Broadcasting Systems. A grand title, but a lowly position. After World War II, however, Stanton became president of the CBS News Division and ultimately president of CBS at the height of the TV network's power. He also became a chairman of the board of the Rand Corporation and a member of President Lyndon Johnson's kitchen cabinet. Among the project's researchers were Herta Herzog, but I'm going to skip ahead. Despite the official gloss, the activities of the radio project made it clear that its purpose was to test empirically the Adorno-Benjamin thesis that the net effect of the mass media would be to atomize and increase lability, or what people would later call brainwashing. So Stanton, this connected to all forms of media, radio, soap operas, things that manipulates people's emotions and opinions. The crowning achievement of the radio project was Little Annie, officially titled the Stanton-Lazarsfeld Program Analyzer. What this means is radio project research had shown that all previous methods of preview polling were ineffectual. Up to that point, a preview audience listened to a show or watched a film and then was asked general questions. Did you like the show? What did you think? And so on and so forth. The radio project realized that this method did not take into account the test audience's atomized perception of the subject and demanded that they make a rational analysis of what was intended to be an irrational experience. So the project created a device in which each test audience member was supplied with a type of rheostat on which he could register the intensity of his likes or dislikes on a moment-to-moment basis. By comparing the individual graphs produced by the device, the operators could determine not if the audience liked the whole show, which was irrelevant, but which situations or characters produce a positive, if momentary, feeling state. So Stanton was key in figuring out how to analyze people's emotions and feelings and how the media was affecting those so that they could fine-tune the media and people's feelings and opinions. He was the head of CBS. He supported the CPB and Lyndon Johnson in creating it. And so I have to doubt that CBS is being honest. I have to doubt that NPR, PBS, CPB have your best interests in mind when these are where these things come from. And as you watch this on YouTube, and YouTube is prompting you to like or dislike or share your thoughts and feelings, you have to wonder what that is being used for and be aware. Because you can't be controlled if you're aware of what is going on. So I encourage you to look deeper, notice the emotional language that they use when they talk about clawing back. They are using these techniques that Stanton helped develop to manipulate their audience. Anyway, thank you. This has been my first segment of hopefully many, and you guys have a great rest of your day. I appreciate it. Bye.